Now, our ancestors were the masters of withdrawing consciousness from above the waterline and taking it down into the underworld to do what? The subconscious. You see? To discover what is it that was beneath that beneath that line, that waterline. They want to find out what are those things that make us the way we are. You see, we concentrated on understanding self because we believe that the genius of the nation should be dedicated to making a better human being. There are other people who take all the genius of the nation to make a better mousetrap, or a better computer, or a better car. This is a better thing. Not a better person, but a better thing. And then you fall into the trap of defining civilization by the ability to make a better thing. You see? I have seen the future according to the white man. It is the year 4000 AD in a galaxy far, far away. You know, traveling at warp speed. Still victimized by anger, lust, killing, murdering. You know what I'm saying? The white man, you know, dream of the world 4,000 years from now hasn't progressed one step ahead of the animalism. Come on now. I do not want to go that way. When it says integration, I say integrate into what? People walk up to me and jack me up after I finish a lecture. Shaka, you've been talking about all these words of power and these spiritual things. And about God. What about guns? I said, guns don't kill people. Guns don't liberate people. People have to use guns. If they're going to use guns, it is people who liberate people, not guns. So if you want to liberate yourself before you reach for guns or not, maybe you may have to do these things. I don't know. But you first have to understand yourself. So let us understand ourselves. Let us understand why is it that we earn $400 billion and can't spend, 1% of 1% of that in one place. That's sad. That is sad. Because if we already earn $400 billion, we're already liberated. We're already free. If we need to call what we earn, it's the black GNP. That will make us put us in the top 10 leading countries in the world. And nobody has put a gun to our head and say, hey, don't spend 1% of it in one place. And you know something? We spend about 10% of it on tobacco. We spend 10% on it on something that somebody went out and killed 100 million of us and enslaved us to grow tobacco. And we spend 10%. We spend, I'm saying, $40 billion a year on something that was used to enslave us. We spend about 20% of that on alcohol. That's why they snatch us out of Africa. To grow sugar, to make booze, to grow tobacco, and things of that nature. You see? We don't have a civil rights problem in America. We don't have a human rights problem in America. We have a spiritual problem. It is true that there are separation. It is true that man is wicked. But we got the power to liberate ourselves. We are ready to liberate ourselves, but we don't know how to take advantage of our liberation. That is what we have to understand. Why can't we even realize that we already liberated? Because, you see, understanding is controlled by the subconscious. You see? You can look at something day in and day out, and until the subconscious throws up to you the association, you won't understand what you see. Listen? Now, let's move on. Your spirit. If you don't study the spirit, and somebody asks you about the spirit, you can't break it down. If you ask the African, what's his ear? He says, well, they wouldn't know what ear is. Ear is ear. Isn't it? If you ask the European, what is ear? He said, well, it's so much percentage carbon dioxide, so much percentage nitrogen, so much percentage oxygen, and oxygen does so and so, and nitrogen does so and so, and carbon dioxide does so and so, and then there are these inert gases, and he gives a whole numerical breakdown of what ear is. You go, wow. The man studied ear. He can break it down. You ask him, what is water? Well, water is water. You ask the European, what is water? He can break it down. 2 molecules of hydrogen, 1 of oxygen. Hydrogen does so and so, oxygen does so and so, has a molecular weight of so and so, atomic weight of so and so. He can break it down by the numbers. He can tell you what air is composed of, what water is composed of. You ask the European, what is the spirit? He says, spirit is spirit. The same way we can't break down air because we haven't studied it, the same way he cannot break down spirit because he hasn't studied it. You have to understand these things. Otherwise you fall into serious traps. You end up falling a child when it comes to religion. The white man, I define religion in my literature, and I've told white people everywhere I've gone, you don't have religion. You don't know what religion is. And none of them have disputed me to this day because they know it's true. I explain that later on. Now, when you study the spirit, you find that your spirit is a complex being. In the same way your body is complex, you see, you have a cardiovascular system, a respiratory system, a urinary system, a digestive system, and so on and so on and so on. It is complex. And the understanding of these different systems and what each one does enables you to practice medicine. You understand? We can therefore speak about the different systems and what they do and diagnose what is wrong and prescribe and all this because you have a broken down knowledge of the body. You see? For you to understand why you are the way you are, you must have a broken down knowledge of that entity that is responsible for your behavior. And that entity responsible for your behavior is your spirit. Okay? Some of you say, no, it's psychology. Wait a minute now, what is psychology? The word psych, yeah, is the name that the Greeks gave to the sahu part of the spirit. This, yeah. When the Greeks came to Egypt, they were given this broken down knowledge of the spirit. You see? And they call what we call the cab, they call the cab, the kaibit, they call the kaibit the zoos, the zoo, animal spirit, right? Okay? They call the sahu the psych. Okay? They said that the Numa, P-N-E-U-M-A, was in the zoos, the animal spirit. What we call the Arab, and the Ku and Ba, so what they call the Numina. Is that they have all the parts, but they had names for different parts of the spirit as well. You see? If you ask the Zulus of Africa, they also tell you that the Kaiba, the animal spirit, is the Unzinda. You see? You find that what we call the Sahu, they call the Eid Lozi. What we call the Arab, they call the Uti Muntu. And so different cultures have this knowledge of different parts of the spirit. Because they have made a study of the spirit. So the Greeks, when they came to Egypt, they had different names for different parts of the spirit. You see? But when the European so-called intellectual, scientific-minded person wanted to discuss the shaping forces of human behavior in such a manner that he would not be accused of speaking spirituality, you see, he took the word psyche for the Sahu part of the spirit, you see, and just simply said, well, this is psychology, the study of the psyche. You see, also he's studying the same thing, meaning that psychology is the study of the human spirit. But you have this problem where you forget the origins of things. And I just want to give you the version to show you how wicked it is, because it was brought to my attention earlier. I had a little chat with a sister who just been walking down by the river, by the estuary out here. And I reminded him how, you know that child's song, ring around the rosy, a pocket full of, you know, she mentioned that, right? And they all fall down. Well, you know, ring around the rosy were the little pox that the Europeans got when they had the Black Plague. They would break out into these pox. You see? And they would stink, so they had to put poxes in their pocket. You see? And ashes, they all fall down, because people with the Black Plague, they'd be walking on the street and just fall down. And it was so infected that they would burn them right there, ashes. You know what I'm saying? So that's what children be singing, right? And you be teaching your children to sing those songs, right, haven't you? You see, you don't even inquire as to, well, what am I teaching my child to sing here? You see, European mentality is full of the use of things that you don't know what they mean. You don't even have a sense that you ought to know what they mean, and so on and so forth. If I ask, you know, all of you, what's the meaning of your name? Many of you would say, I don't know, my name doesn't have a meaning. But names are supposed to have meanings. Names have meanings. Be careful. Your problem could be that the meaning of your name is taking your spirit in the whole wrong direction. Whoa now. You know, you might have a name like Fish. Or Beer. You know. You say you might want to be a doctor, but your name is Smith. You know, and you understand why you keep wanting to go back to working with your hands. You know, working with banging on metal, you know. You know, you should have been called something else. You got to understand that things have meanings, and you have to deal with meanings and purpose. I'm just simply saying to you that the Western man has this habit of looking into words without understanding the meaning of the words, and let alone the reality behind the words. And we were, you know, taken away from our culture. And then now we are given his inferior culture in place. And that is the beginning of our problems, because all problems begin with the mind. You see? And the solution to all problems must be effected in the mind. You see? Now, so psychology. If you understand that psychology is the study of the psyche, you see? And it has to do, it's just simply one of the parts of the spirit called the knowledge of the Greeks, you see? And they ignored all other parts. They understand that it's really the spirit that you're studying, because you see, those people who form the word psychology, you see, are studying the same thing, spirituality. So if you're a psych major or sociology major, and you're not going back to your African ancestors, have a complete knowledge of the spirit and how to affect it, you see, then you cannot rescue your people. Okay? And psychology and sociology are failures. Look at the world today, and you find that the white man doesn't know how to shape human behavior in a positive way. So you have to scrap that and study history and ask yourself, are there people that history can reveal to me that were able to establish, you know, stable societies? You find them in Africa. You find them among the American Indians. Then go and study their psychology. They call it spirituality. Now, when a man looks into the spirit, he's able to break it down into its different parts. Quickly, we have the cab, which is the name we give to the body of atoms and molecules that you call the physical body. Okay? It's not the material body. Everything is matter. You see, matter comes in different degrees of subtlety and density. You with me? On some level, matter, you see, is particle. On another level, matter is force. You with me now? Okay? And if you study the Bantu philosophy, when plastic temples, just as priests went to South Africa to study among the Zulus, you find that long before Einstein was born, to explain to white people that force and matter were different polarities of the same thing. You see, the Zulus told the same thing to plastic temples. You see? Because the name for matter is Kintu. You see? And Kintu is a category for all particles and all forces. I think Einstein read that book. He had the opportunity to read the book. And he was an avid reader of metaphysical things and other cultures, so I think he read the book. You see? Now, when you study the spirit, you find that it has different parts. The cab is the body of atoms and molecules. The part of the spirit you can bump into on earth. Above that is the kaibit, what we call the animal spirit. The word animal comes from the word animation. You see? Animals are not the critters that run around and fly around and creep around. Animals is that electromagnetic force, intelligent force in nature that allows things the power to move. As you say, motion. Yeah? As you say, motivation. Suppose you're saying, I have a problem being motivated. You're saying, if you understood your spirit, you were saying, I have a problem with my animal spirit. No? And then if you understand that the animal spirit is controlled through breathing, then you will know that the solution to your motivational problem is just to engage yourself in deep breathing exercises. Very simple. You don't need, pep talk and rally. No, just breathe more. Get some fresh air. Be motivated. Can we use more motivated black men and black women today? There you go now. You see? But it's animal spirits. That's why in ancient Egypt, you saw hawk-headed humans, dog-headed humans, you saw a cow-headed human, and the white man would come and say, you people are worshiping animals. No, we weren't worshiping animals. We were saying something that psychobiologists just discovered about 50 years ago. That in the human brain, there are animal structures. The brain stem and the limbic brain is an animal brain. These are animal brains. The brain stem is what influences the behavior like a reptile, because it's the part of your brain that you share in common with reptiles. The midbrain or the limbic brain makes you behave like the beast, and so because that's the part of your brain that you share in common with the beast. So you have something in your brain that makes you to act like an animal. If you don't understand that, you will not take measures to tame the animal inside of you. And then the animal will control you. But worse than that, somebody else, your enemy, will control the animal for you to control you through the animal within you. And you will be writing poems and singing songs glorifying the ways of the animal within you. Listen up now, I'm telling you. Turn on your radio any day and you can find your thought on saying people writing songs worshiping the animal within them, because if you don't know, don't understand that. The animal within you, the kaibit part of your spirit, is that part of your spirit You see? That says to you, this is what you like, this is what you don't like. This is what you like, do it. This is what you don't like, don't do it. You know, you like hamburgers. The white man says, let us make them love hamburgers, so that we will kill off all the black men in the prime of their youth. By the time you hit 50, 60, you're finished. Because you've been going down eating hamburgers with all that fat in it. You see, he said 97% fat free, but he didn't tell you there's pretty much fat in you to kill a horse. You see? They know where high blood pressure comes from. They gave it to you. They know where it comes from. You see? So we want for you to understand that somebody is pushing your buttons. If you don't understand the nature of your spirit, you see, that which likes within you, that which expresses itself as liking, moves you towards something or moves you away from something, is a blind, dumb animal principle. Do not ever do something because you like it. Do not ever receive from doing something because you don't like it. Because then you are in control, then you're being controlled by the animal spirit within you. On a scale of values, look how low the animal is. You're eating very low off the tree of life. The Sahu, spirits 9, 8, and 7. The Sahu part of the spirit. The Sahu part of the spirit corresponds to 8. The 8th spirit will be classified your ability to handle, verbal symbols. You process verbal symbols through the 8th spirit of the spirit. That's where you give a name to a thing, a definition to a thing, a description to a thing. You with me? All schooling is giving names, descriptions, and explanations about things, you see? Now, this is what happens, though. When you use what you call your intellectual abilities, C is the reality. B is the intellectual, symbolic representation of that reality C. With me now? A is you. And every time you want to know the reality C, you go through the symbol B. So no matter how nimble-minded you are, no matter how many PhDs you have, you see, you are never looking directly at the reality C. You are looking at the symbol B. You're always looking at something that represents something that's standing in for the reality. And no symbol, no matter how well constructed, can contain reality itself. This is a trap. Because your enemy has figured out how to hide more reality than he reveals through symbols. Can understand that? There is a science of the spirit. When you bring your consciousness up the second to the tree of life, when you see, the symbol, the verbal symbol processing faculty is down here 8. Yeah? If you were to bring your consciousness up to the second sphere of the tree of life, you will gain the ability to shut down the thinking ability. There is a state of mind where you have no thoughts. All thinking vanishes. And you end up looking directly at the reality without words trying to explain to you what you're seeing. So that's one of the biggest traps in life, where words are explaining to you what a thing is and is not. You have to be able to still that process to see exactly what is out there in the world. You see, this is what you mean by liberation. Are you with me now? Okay? The man has woven a very complex edifice of ignorant words in order to control you. You know what I'm talking about. How many people believe in democracy does not exist. You with me? He says, if you were able to still the thinking processes, you will find that capitalism is a failure. You see? But many of you are going to school to try to make it in a capitalist world that has failed. When capitalism was invented, they said it was to give wealth to the people and to the world. Then how come is it that every single nation is in debt? How come is it that every single nation has such a debt that they can never pay back? Well, but you're going to go to school tomorrow, Monday, huh? They said the Greeks invented democracy, but the women couldn't vote in Greece. You see, that's what happened by the, people don't see the reality. They see the symbol for the reality itself. And I can go on all night long. I can just stay on that one thing and pile up examples of that, but I know you're bright, you got the gist of what I'm saying. Let's move on. Now, so the Sahu part of the spirit has this problem. You see, it cannot see reality. It can only see the words, the definition, the description, the information that represents reality. You see, you don't see God. You see the explanation of God. You see, you know about God, but you don't know God. But you walk around thinking you know God. Because you mistake, being informed with knowing. You see? When you shut down the thinking principle and you look directly into the world, you know. But when you are having an information explaining to you what the word is, you don't know. You're just simply informed. Informed. You see? Knowledge has been put into form. But that knowledge can be wrong as hell. It usually is. You see? Not by accident or by ignorance, but by design of your enemy. I'm trying to build up very slowly to let you understand how we're going to liberate ourselves. Because you see, for you to liberate yourself, you have to reclaim your mind.